Our story begins with a man reborn as an upside-down black spirit egg, whom the school beauty insists on contracting despite everyone's protests. Not only does she give him daily massages, but she even insists on holding him while she sleeps and bathes. This is because the girl, Lu Ruyan, is the reincarnation of a great empress who focused solely on martial arts in her past life. That neglect led to a tragic end, so to avoid repeating her mistakes, she has decided to focus on the path of beast taming. And so, she contracted our protagonist, who possesses the bloodline of the ancestral dragon and is currently napping inside his shell. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation, a truly wonderful feeling, really, as he realizes a human has finally formed a contract with him. Upon his rebirth, he had gained the ancestral dragon bloodline and awakened a golden label system to aid his journey. He earns a new golden trait with every level, but without a contractor, he had no way to level up at all. As the contract is finalized, the dragon egg suddenly erupts with a blinding golden light. The bond is successfully sealed. The system confirms the status, contractor, Lu Ruyan. Hearing that name, our protagonist, Jiang Nye, pauses in surprise. Name, Jiang Nye. Race, dragon. He quickly asks the system if it can switch to a more pleasant female voice. The system adjusts instantly. Contractor, Lu Ruyan. Current intimacy, 3. Level 1, which, naturally, is only the beginning. He learns he cannot hatch until he reaches level 2. He realizes his hopes for a quick exit depend entirely on the Empress Ruyan. After completing the contract, Ruyan eagerly tries to check the dragon egg's basic attributes and stats. To her surprise, she finds she cannot see any information at all. She wonders if it's simply because he hasn't hatched yet. She tells herself it doesn't matter. Even the lowliest dragon is still a divine-level beast compared to anything else. The most important task now is hatching this egg. With that thought, she picks up the dragon egg and holds it close. She begins walking toward the exit of the giant beast nest. Meanwhile, outside the nest, a crowd has gathered. Everyone is excitedly showing off their newly contracted spirit beasts when a girl walks over with an air of absolute confidence. In her arms, she is cradling a blue ground-running chicken. A student named by Ningbing stares in total disbelief at the sight. A ground-running chicken? With a talent score of 80, we see that choosing such a creature seems like a total waste of her potential. The teachers all share the same look of disappointment. As if sensing the crowd's collective malice, that little blue chicken suddenly snaps its eyes open. It lets out a piercing cry toward the heavens, a sound that echoes through the entire area. That is the cry of a phoenix. No one expected this to be a spirit beast possessing the legendary phoenix bloodline. At the mention of the phoenix bloodline, everyone gasps in shock. One student quickly and quietly hides his own contracted beast behind his back. If by Ningbing contracted a god-level beast, everyone wonders what kind of creature Lu Ruyan, with her talent score of 99, has managed to find. Under the expectant gaze of the crowd, Ruyan slowly walks out of the giant beast nest. And this is where things get truly interesting. Suddenly, a strange phenomenon erupts in the sky, catching everyone completely off guard. It is a celestial vision. The crowd wonders if Ruyan has contracted a spirit beast even more powerful than a god-level one. Meanwhile, outside the Xia kingdom, Li Xiaoyao, one of the 10 strongest experts, is startled by the sight of the vision in the sky. He is shocked by the terrifying scale of the phenomenon, wondering if another divine beast has descended upon the world. He decides to head out and see the spectacle for himself. A few seconds after he rushes off, other powerful figures of the Xia kingdom notice as well. These experts mount their respective spirit beasts and follow after him. The terrifying vision lasts for quite some time before finally beginning to fade. When the crowd finally sees the egg in Ruyan's hands, they are all left speechless. To be honest, they can't believe their eyes. They wonder why she would take such a massive risk to contract an unhatched egg. Could it be the descendant of some incredibly powerful beast? The experts hovering in the sky are also momentarily stunned the moment they lay eyes on that spirit egg. Even more strangely, they cannot sense any powerful aura coming from the egg at all, nor can they even determine its race. Just as everyone is feeling completely bewildered, a student suddenly screams out a realization. He claims the vision just now wasn't caused by Ruyan at all, but rather by Ningbing. It was the ground-running chicken in Ningbing's hands. His words instantly wake everyone up to what they believe is the truth. It seems that earlier Phoenix cry triggered a celestial phenomenon. After all, Ningbing has contracted a spirit beast with the bloodline of a phoenix. It is only natural that a god-level beast would cause such a vision. Upon hearing the words, Phoenix bloodline, the powerful experts who gathered finally realized they had mistaken who the true protagonist of this event was. Facing the crowd's praise and envious gazes, Ningbing lifted her head with pride. She was clearly savoring this moment of being the center of everyone's attention. Meanwhile, we see Wu Lin looking at the spirit egg in Lu Ruyan's hands, letting out a heavy, disappointed sigh. He asked Ruyan if this was truly the beast she chose. She confirmed it was. Very well, the director replied, his voice trailing off. He told Lu Ruyan that he would respect her choice, even if he didn't quite understand it. Others weren't so kind, mocking her because they expected something grand, only to see what looked like a dead egg. The insults began to fly. They argued that since the contract was complete but the egg hadn't hatched, it must be lifeless. A logical conclusion, in their eyes. Hearing the mockery, Lu Rian simply knit her brows and stared at the ground-running chicken in by Ningbing's hands. She noted that things were playing out just like in her previous life. Back then, this Frost Phoenix had also chosen Ningbing. However, in this life, Rian knew she had found a spirit beast far more terrifying than any phoenix. To be honest, she wasn't worried at all. Thinking of this, Rian let out a cold laugh. Contracting a god-level beast was nothing special to her anymore. She boldly challenged Ningbing to a duel in 1 month. The loser, she declared, would have to leave the academy forever. Ningbing accepted immediately, eager to show the world who the true genius was. It was a bold move, perhaps even a reckless one. As the crowd dispersed, news of their upcoming duel began to spread far and wide. Our story then follows Rian as she prepares. She wasted no time purchasing supplies to hatch the egg, nutrient solution, and a specialized incubation device. Using her own beast-taming power, she carefully placed the dragon egg into the device. This was the moment of truth. She added the nutrient solution and began the incubation process. Slowly, the temperature inside the egg started to rise. Inside the shell, the creature felt as if it were enveloped in an incredibly warm and comfortable embrace. Enveloped in that soft environment, the sensation was overwhelming, as if every sense were being cradled at once. It was a strange feeling, to be honest, and that warmth was so comforting that the creature began to lose itself. But soon, as a surge of rich energy entered the egg, the consciousness within snapped back to full alertness. It immediately began absorbing that pure energy. For 3 consecutive days, Rian used this same method to nurture the egg. Finally, the dragon egg showed signs of cracking. The moment of birth was finally at hand. Inside the shell, the creature continued to drain the nutrient solution, reaching the limit of level 1. Having reached the cap, it automatically leveled up to level 2, granting a chance to draw a new trait. The draw was made, and luck was on its side. It obtained the golden trait, Infinite Devour. This power allowed it to consume anything with spiritual energy or flesh, granting random rewards upon digestion. These rewards included attribute points, new talents, and evolution points. It was an incredible haul, really. The sheer variety of potential rewards was staggering. A second later, the creature finally broke through the shell. While it was still reeling from the shock of its new power, a pair of slender hands reached down and lifted it up. Looking at Rian, the creature was stunned. Her beauty was truly on another level entirely. Being a spirit beast wasn't so bad if it meant being contracted to someone like her. Rian, meanwhile, was ecstatic. She realized it was a pure-blooded dragon, but then she paused. The creature's scales were a deep, midnight black. Even among dragons, bloodline strength is usually signaled by color: blue, red, white, purple, or gold. She remembered that in her previous life, a god-level tamer rode a golden dragon and was invincible. But what did this black bloodline represent? Could it possibly be even stronger than the golden one? Rian quickly wiped the hatchling clean and offered it the beast meat she had prepared in advance. She asked the little fellow if it was hungry, watching closely as it prepared to take its first meal. As the little dragon feasted, a notification appeared. Eating had granted a permanent increase to its maximum health. Meanwhile, Rian checked its attributes and was stunned to find it possessed the highest grade ancestral dragon bloodline. This meant the little fellow had the power of an ancestral beast, with base stats that were already heaven-defying at level 2. Realizing this, Rian made a silent vow in her heart to nurture this creature, no matter what the cost might be. As she watched it eat, her gaze grew increasingly tender. To her, the little dragon was simply adorable. She decided to call it Xiaoyan, and the creature, somewhat helplessly, we might add, nodded its head in agreement. Rian promised to take Xiaoyan to a dungeon to level up once it was full. 5 minutes later, the dragon patted its satisfied belly. After letting out a small dragon burp, it followed Rian as she rushed out of the dormitory, ready for the next step. We move now to the Jiuxiao Academy Dungeon Square, which was already overflowing with crowds of eager students. Teachers were busy organizing their classes, ensuring each student entered the dungeons in an orderly fashion. The academy maintains a strict hierarchy for these dungeons, and entering a high-level one requires extreme caution. Defeating the beasts within grants experience points, and if luck is on their side, a small chance for rare treasures. Over the past 3 days, students who contracted spirit beasts had been assigned to various classes based on their potential. Bai Ningbing, having contracted a god-level beast, naturally entered Class 1, the class reserved for the elite geniuses. As for Rian, who was thought to have a dead egg, she was rejected by many until she was finally placed in Class 9. The teacher of Class 9 was a woman in her 30s named Su Xiaoyan, who watched over the remaining students. While the others mocked her, Rian's best friend, Shinran, was about to defend her when she saw Rian approaching. When Shinran caught sight of what was in Rian's hands, she was visibly startled by the unexpected transformation. She asked if this was the spirit beast that had hatched from the black egg, and Rian simply gave a quiet nod. Rian carried the little dragon to the back of the class, ignoring the whispers of those who called it a mere 4-legged snake. To me, it looks more like a black loach, one student mocked. Maybe that dead egg never hatched, and you just bought this at a street stall. Facing the crowd's ridicule, Rian simply let out a cold laugh in her heart. To be honest, their ignorance was almost impressive. She told herself these people likely hadn't seen a true dragon in their entire lives. Since everyone had arrived, it was time to enter the dungeons. There were 5 types of dungeons available, and each session would last for exactly 3 hours. It was a race against the clock. After 3 hours, everyone would be forcibly teleported out. We see a device nearby used to measure the students' scores. For every spirit beast killed within the dungeon, students would earn a corresponding number of points. Pacing themselves would be key. The students couldn't see their own scores, but those outside could. Naturally, the top 10 performers would receive very generous rewards. After a collective shout of determination, the students began selecting their respective dungeons. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Rian was no different. She walked up to a dungeon entrance and studied the contents on the electronic screen. "We'll choose this one, Xiaoyan." She noted that while this dungeon's difficulty was higher, the potential rewards were far greater. A risky move, perhaps, but a calculated one. She wanted to give those who mocked her a firm reality check. And so, Rian led the little dragon into the dungeon's depths. Upon entering, the little dragon excitedly took in the surroundings. We find them standing right in the middle of 2 low, rocky mountains. "Go for it, Xiaoyan. It's all up to you now," Rian encouraged. In response, the little fellow gave a confident nod. He let out a dragon roar that echoed through the entire Emerald Stone Valley. Immediately, a pangolin rat burst from the ground with a hiss. The creature launched a surprise attack. "Xiaoyan, be careful. That's a pangolin rat. It can burrow," Rian warned, her heart racing. Hearing Rian's prompt, the little dragon easily dodged the rat's strike. Realizing its attack had failed, the pangolin rat tried to dive back underground. But the dragon wasn't about to let it escape. He lunged forward, grabbing the rat's hindquarters with his claws and dragging it back out. A second later, his other claw pierced right through the creature's body. It was a swift, decisive end to the encounter. The system announced that killing the pangolin rat had granted 3 experience points. Rian pumped her fist in excitement. She was thrilled. "Xiaoyan, you're incredible," she cheered. But the battle was far from over, as several more rats began emerging from the earth. More rats emerged from the ground. Since they were all here, the little dragon decided they might as well stay here forever. He flexed his claws and let out a roar. The power of the ancestral dragon bloodline was on full display. Under the weight of that roar, all living things seemed to bow in submission. The pangolin rats let out terrified squeals and fell to their knees. It was a sight that truly left Rian standing nearby in complete shock. She marveled at the terrifying power of the ancestral dragon bloodline. And to think, Xiaoyan was still only in his infancy. Once he fully matured, his potential would be limitless. Taking advantage of the rat's paralysis, the little dragon lunged forward to finish them off one by one. He moved quickly, striking down every last one of them. Killing this many pangolin rats was bound to yield a significant amount of experience points. He had already reached 21 experience points, putting him on the verge of another level up. He decided he might as well devour the remains of the rats. He wasn't sure if they would taste good, but he picked up a piece of meat and began to chew, which, as it turned out, was a bit of a mistake. It tasted terrible. Still, for the sake of the rewards, he forced himself to keep eating. To be honest, his dedication was quite admirable. Rian told him to stop and offered to process the meat for him. She reached into her storage ring and pulled out a small heating device. By placing the meat inside, it would cook automatically. She urged Xiaoyan to eat his fill, noting that he needed the nutrition while he was still growing. The little dragon took the cooked meat from Rian with his claws. Immediately, he looked at her with eyes full of genuine gratitude. He was impressed by her thoughtfulness. She really had considered everything. Once heated, the pangolin rat meat tasted significantly better than before. He ate quickly, and we see that his defense stat rose to 11 points. It was a productive meal, to say the least. Just then, Rian suddenly felt a strange vibration in the earth. She realized with a start that another spirit beast was approaching. The moment she spoke, a massive pangolin rat burst forth from the ground. Its size was easily double that of the ones they had faced earlier. Its claws looked far sharper as well. Rian shouted a warning to Xiaoyan, identifying the creature as the pangolin rat king. The dungeon's level limit was 7, and this king was exactly level 7. Hearing Rian's voice, the little dragon focused all his attention on the threat. Even though he was a dragon, he knew he couldn't afford to be careless. Suddenly, the pangolin rat king charged directly at him. The beast opened with a powerful claw attack. The little dragon dodged continuously, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back with his own claws. He managed to land a blow on the pangolin rat king's back, but since his attack power was only 7 and the king's defense was 11, his strike didn't have much of an effect. Rian shouted for Xiaoyan to target its belly, and hearing this, he shifted his gaze toward the king's underside. He lunged forward, but in that split second, the beast curled its body into a tight ball to protect its weak spot. Yes, it was smarter than it looked. He was shocked that it could defend itself so effectively, and while he was distracted, the Rat King immediately launched a fierce counterattack. A second later, we see the wound on his back beginning to heal at a visible speed. This was the true power of the ancestral dragon bloodline. Its ultimate recovery ability made him nearly immortal. Rian marveled at his resilience and suggested he use it to bait the enemy into an opening. She told him to feign a mistake and then strike the belly. Xiao Nian nodded, turned around, and began to run away. A classic distraction, really. Seeing him flee, the pangolin rat king immediately gave chase. But this time, our little dragon was prepared for the impact. The moment he took the hit on his back, he spun around and used his dragon claws to slash open the rat king's belly. It was a devastating blow. With its body heavily wounded, the rat king lost its will to fight and tried to burrow into the ground. Rian shouted for Xiao Nian not to let it escape. Before her voice even faded, he had already moved, piercing the king's belly with a final strike. And just like that, the pangolin rat king was dead. Ruyan praised him, amazed that he had defeated a creature 5 levels higher than himself. For killing the king, he earned 30 experience points. Having reached his experience limit, he automatically leveled up to level 3. He also earned a chance to draw a new trait. When asked if he wanted to draw a gold tier trait, he didn't hesitate. He was rewarded with a skill called Absolute Penetration. This ability gave every attack an 80% chance to ignore any defensive skills or armor. To be honest, that is quite a terrifying advantage. It allowed him to strike the target's body directly. He realized that with this new trait, he could have killed the Rat King even by attacking its back. At that moment, a joyful Ruyan ran over and scooped him up in her arms. She gave him a big kiss, telling him he had done a wonderful job. Xiao Nian thought to himself that being a spirit beast wasn't such a bad life after all, which, given the circumstances, was a fair assessment. While processing the Rat King's carcass, Ruyan told Xiao Nian to wait a moment while she prepared something special to reward him. Thanks to her rebirth, Ruyan was highly experienced in handling spirit beast remains. She moved with a precision that was truly impressive to behold. She immediately identified which cuts of meat were usable and which parts held real value, noting that the hardened skin on the pangolin Rat King's back could be sold on the market, while the rest had little recovery value. After she finished processing the meat, Xiao Nian began to feast heartily once again. By now, an hour and a half had already passed since the dungeon first opened. On the plaza, the scores on the electronic screen were constantly refreshing, yet the person in first place remained unchanged. Watching by Ningbing's score, the teachers nodded in satisfaction. Ningbing had already reached 17 points, widening the gap with second place by 10 points. It was mentioned that Ningbing was now only a single step away from becoming an apprentice beast tamer. A talent like Ningbing would certainly be nurtured. After all, it wasn't every day one saw such potential. They speculated she might even become a master or grandmaster beast tamer. As for the other talent, well, they decided to ask class teacher Su Xiaoyan about that. The moment those words were spoken, everyone's gaze shifted instantly toward Xiaoyan. Suddenly, someone noticed the rankings shifting. A familiar name was climbing at a blistering speed. In the blink of an eye, that name reached second place. Seeing it, the crowd erupted in an uproar, hardly able to believe their own eyes. Just a moment ago, second place belonged to a very different student, but now, Lu Ruyan had suddenly reached 16 points. They wondered if this was even possible, or if she had perhaps used some sort of trickery. The teachers were utterly shocked and couldn't quite wrap their heads around it. They began to wonder if the egg Ruyan contracted really had hatched into an epic tier spirit beast. What they didn't know, however, was that the only reason she was trailing by a point was that Ruyan had spent a significant amount of time preparing food for Xiao Nian. Back in the dungeon, after killing the Rat King, Ruyan and our little dragon soon encountered a group of rolling stone beasts. She warned him to be careful of their rock attacks. Hearing Ruyan's warning, he dodged the incoming strikes while using his dragon claws to swat the flying stones away. While these fragments posed no real threat to him, they were, to be honest, quite annoying. He knew killing them would grant massive experience. The Rolling Stone Beast's attacks couldn't even pierce his skin. Instead, he shattered them one by one with his claws. Once they died, they turned into nothing more than piles of broken rubble. This left Xiao Nian feeling quite frustrated. After all, he couldn't exactly devour stones. But just then, those shattered rocks began to rapidly gather together, eventually merging into a single, massive spirit beast. Ruyan shouted for him to be careful, identifying it as a megalith beast, the evolved form of those rolling stone beasts. It could hurl rocks, and its defense had been significantly enhanced. Hearing this, our little dragon felt a spark of excitement. An evolved form? Well, if he could just take this big guy down, he would reach level 4 and finally unlock his skill tree. With that goal in mind, he took the initiative and launched an attack. Against his absolute penetration gold trait, the megalith beast's supposedly formidable defense was essentially non-existent. However, just as he prepared to strike again, the beast hoisted a massive boulder from the ground and hurled it directly at him. At that moment, the advantage of his small size became clear. He darted through the air with ease, dodging the incoming projectile. No matter how high the attack power, it was useless if it couldn't hit him. Seeing its attack fail, the megalith beast flew into a rage and began a relentless barrage of stones. Yet Xiao Nian evaded every single one. Ruyan then called out, telling him to target the glowing sphere in front. That was its eye. Following Ruyan's guidance, he found the perfect opening and swung his claw, striking the megalith beast squarely in its eye. With the beast defeated, a notification appeared. He had earned a draw. He didn't hesitate to pull for a new gold trait. Congratulations were in order, as he obtained Ancient Dragon Flame. This ability allowed him to breathe high-temperature fire from his mouth, complete with a burning effect. The intensity of the flames would grow as his level increased. Seeing the effect of this gold trait, he was overjoyed. He finally had an active offensive skill. The skill tree was now open as well, and he was curious to see what wonders it held. A moment later, a dark panel appeared before him, resembling a massive tree with so many branches it made his head spin. He lightly tapped one of the branches, Void Sunder. It required 15 skill points. To be honest, that was quite a lot, so he decided to take things slow. Since he currently only had one skill point, he figured he should light up the most basic skill first. He gently tapped the very first branch of the skill tree. 1 point was deducted, and he successfully unlocked the Dragon Claw Tear skill. Seeing how easily he had slain the megalith beast, Ruyan let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed her worries about Xiaoyan had been entirely unnecessary. His strength was becoming truly absurd. Just then, right beside the megalith beast's remains, 2 small books suddenly appeared out of thin air. Curious, Xiaoyan stepped forward and used his claws to pick them up, examining them closely. As it turned out, these were experience books. Our luck was holding up quite well. The probability of a spirit beast dropping an experience book is actually incredibly low. Ruyan urged him on. She told him to open them quickly, as they would help him level up fast. Hearing Ruyan's advice, Xiaoyan nodded and flipped through the pages. The 2 books immediately granted him 40% more experience. Having reached the limit, the system automatically pushed him to level 5. His first evolution was about to begin, a process that would take roughly 10 minutes. As the system's voice faded, a sudden wave of drowsiness hit him. He felt a deep urge to sleep, which was quite understandable given the circumstances. He soon found himself surrounded by a soft white light, the unmistakable sign of evolution. By now, 2 hours had passed since the dungeon opened. Most of the students had already left, not even waiting for the full 3 hours. This was largely because their spirit beasts were too injured to continue. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye, and his first evolution was complete. We see that the evolution tree had finally been unlocked. He was rewarded with 1 evolution point. Xiaoyan slowly opened his eyes, feeling a strange and wonderful sensation coursing through his body. He couldn't wait to check the evolution tree, which, much like the skill tree, was filled with countless complex branches. To be honest, it was a bit overwhelming. With 1 evolution point to spend, he looked to see what he could activate. After scanning the various branches, he let out a somewhat helpless sigh. While every path seemed incredibly powerful, the number of points required for the best ones was simply staggering. He would have to be patient. He decided it was best to take things 1 step at a time. He chose to light up a specific branch, and with 1 point deducted, he was successful. He had unlocked Superior Defense, a trait that significantly boosted his durability. Then, the system reminded him he had 1 more draw available. He was asked if he wanted to pull for a gold trait. He didn't hesitate. Congratulations were once again in order as he obtained Beast Language Mastery. This ability allowed him to understand all beast languages. He paused for a moment, wondering if this would actually be useful. Well, perhaps it might. Seeing that his evolution was finished, Ruyan rushed over and lifted him high into the air, celebrating his success. But the moment was brief. Just then, an announcement echoed through the area. The dungeon was about to close. There were only 30 minutes remaining before everyone was forced out. With only a few minutes left, Ruyan suggested they push themselves a bit harder to hunt a few more spirit beasts. Xiaoyan nodded, his fighting spirit high as he brandished his dragon claws. Immediately after, the pair began to sweep through the gravel valley with overwhelming force, practically wiping out every spirit beast in their path. Our points were increasing at a rapid pace. When only 10 minutes remained in the dungeon, a very different scene was unfolding elsewhere. Bai Ningbing, brimming with confidence, led her spirit beast out of the dungeon. To her, first place was already a certainty, a guaranteed victory. There was no need to waste any more time. However, the moment she stepped out, she noticed everyone was staring blankly in her direction. She quite enjoyed being the center of attention, even asking her beast, Xiaolan, if that hadn't been easy. It was a bit arrogant, to be honest. She wondered what kind of reward the first-place winner would receive, only to freeze in shock. She was in second place. It was only then she realized the crowd wasn't looking at her at all, but at Lu Ruyan's name sitting at the top of the leaderboard. First place, Lu Ruyan, with 40 points. And as the seconds ticked by, that score was actually still rising. This was simply unheard of. She told herself this was impossible. Even if that dead egg had hatched, it couldn't possibly surpass her. There had to be a glitch in the system. Unable to accept the reality before her eyes, Bai Ningbing found the official, Wu Lin, to report the situation. But she was met with a disappointing response. Facing Ningbing's accusations, Wu Lin could only shake her head helplessly. The monitoring device in her hand showed that the dungeon was functioning perfectly without any errors. If it wasn't a glitch, Ningbing reasoned, then Ruyan must be cheating. Yes, that had to be it. At that moment, the class teacher, Lu Ming, came over and patted her shoulder. He told her not to worry, as the dungeon was about to end. If it was discovered that she had indeed cheated, her score would be cancelled and she would face severe punishment. Seeing that Lu Ming had already decided Rian was a cheater, Su Xiaoyan frowned. She was clearly displeased by the rush to judgment. She told Lu Ming that while he could eat whatever he liked, he shouldn't speak so recklessly. It was far too early to draw such conclusions. Lu Ming snapped back, asking what else it could be if not cheating. The two began to argue until the tension became quite thick. They decided to wait until Rian came out to ask her directly. Soon, as the timer hit 0, Rian and the others still inside were forcibly teleported out of the dungeon. And this is where the situation became truly interesting. As Rian turned around, she couldn't help but wonder how many spirit beasts they had actually defeated and where they would rank. She gasped in surprise, realizing they were in first place. It was expected, of course, but she still praised Xiao Nian for his hard work. She promised to reward him properly that evening. Just then, Shinran ran over in a state of pure excitement to congratulate them. She told Rian she was incredibly strong, noting that the little fellow seemed quite different than he did before. It seemed he had grown quite a bit. At that moment, the resentful Bai Ningbing approached, unable to hide her bitterness. She accused Rian of cheating, claiming it was impossible for such a stupid spirit beast to take first place with such a strange appearance. Rian fired back, asking what proof she had. If Ningbing hadn't seen a beast like this, it simply meant she lacked experience. After all, Xiao Nian belonged to the Dragon Clan. Wu Lin stepped in then, telling Ningbing she was being far too out of line. The official declared Rian's score valid with no signs of cheating whatsoever, then asked if anyone else had a problem with that. Upon hearing Wu Lin's firm stance, the murmurs of the crowd vanished instantly. She then offered her congratulations to Rian for the win. She invited Rian to follow her, while instructing the other students to rest and return to her office in 1 hour. Though Bai Ningbing was still unwilling to accept it, she knew better than to say more. A short while later, we find them in the office. Rian thanked the director for believing in her, but Wu Lin insisted there was no need. She was fair to every student. After saying this, Wu Lin began to observe Rian and her companion very closely. She admitted something rather personal. She had seen nearly 1,000 different spirit beasts in her time, yet she had never encountered one quite like this before. She asked what it truly was, and Rian calmly explained that Xiao Nian was a member of the Dragon Clan. Wu Lin asked if she was joking. While the Dragon Clan was legendary, most people had only ever heard vague descriptions of them. In fact, in the entire history of the lower realm, a true dragon had never actually appeared, not even once. Wu Lin shook her head with a smile, clearly finding Rian's claim hard to believe. To be honest, who could blame her? She then brought out the reward for the first-place winner of the points leaderboard, a truly rare prize. The prize included a healing salve to quickly mend a spirit beast's wounds, and an affinity potion that, once consumed, slightly increases the bond with their beast tamer. There was also an experience fruit to grant a small boost in power. Finally, a protective garment capable of blocking a low-level attack. As Rian accepted these rewards from Wu Lin, she offered her sincere thanks. She showed the prizes to Xiao Nian, asking if he liked them. Our little dragon took one look at the items in Rian's hand and instinctively swallowed his saliva. But just as he reached out his claws to take them, a massive tiger with dark gold fur stepped out from behind Wu Lin. It bore natural, rune-like dark patterns across its body, and a golden mark between its eyes that looked almost like a third eye. It was quite an imposing sight. Rian covered her mouth in surprise, asking the director if this was the legendary god-grade beast, the Thunderwhirl Spirit Tiger. Wu Lin confirmed it was, noting that she had poured an immense amount of blood, sweat, and tears into raising it. Unfortunately, due to a lack of innate talent, it could only reach the level of a quasi-divine beast. She had named it Tianxia. Since the creature didn't particularly like strangers, she usually kept it tucked away inside her office. Rian nodded thoughtfully, but at that exact moment, the Thunderwhirl Spirit Tiger let out a low, menacing growl. Its beastly eyes were locked onto Xiao Nian. To be honest, the little dragon wasn't about to take that kind of attitude lying down. Feeling mocked, the tiger took a step forward, instantly releasing a powerful and suffocating pressure into the room. Wu Lin tried to tell Tianxia not to be rude, but Xiao Nian was already offended that a mere stray cat dared to challenge a dragon. With just a single low growl of his own, the once proud spirit tiger suddenly looked like a wilted vegetable. The beast collapsed entirely onto the floor. Because of their contract, Wu Lin felt the impact instantly, gasping for air under the weight. Rian quickly called out to Xiao Nian to stop, and only then did he withdraw the overwhelming pressure of the ancestral dragon. Rian apologized, explaining that Xiao Nian was just being a bit mischievous. Wu Lin took a deep breath, trying to suppress the sheer panic rising in her heart. She told them it was fine, and Rian headed back to the dormitory. And so, Rian led the way out of the director's office. Once they were gone, Wu Lin wiped the sweat from her brow and collapsed into her chair, wondering what on earth had just happened to Tianxia. Meanwhile, the Thunderwhirl Spirit Tiger had to muster every ounce of strength just to crawl back up from the floor. Its eyes were filled with pure terror. As they walked back to the dormitory, Rian asked about what had just transpired, wondering if the director's divine beast had been trying to intimidate Xiao Nian. In response, our little dragon simply nodded. Rian smiled, praising him as the best, but she gently warned him not to let it happen again. After all, It was the director's spirit beast, and causing it actual injury would be quite a headache. Of course, there likely won't be a next time. After being suppressed by such overwhelming pressure, that tiger wouldn't dare act arrogant again. By the time the pair reached the dorms, the sky had already begun to grow dark. The dormitory was designed for 2 people, meaning that besides Rian, there was only her best friend, Shinran. The moment Rian stepped through the door, Shinran ran over excitedly to hug her, exclaiming how amazing Rian had been today for putting Bai Ningbing in her place. Rian credited the victory to Xiaoyan, whom Shinran found adorable. She asked if she could hold him. Now, a dragon is supposed to be aloof and dignified, but he figured a quick hug wouldn't hurt anything. Afterward, Rian gave Xiaoyan a bath to help him relax. An hour later, when they finally emerged from the bathroom, they found that Shinran had already fallen asleep. Rian suddenly realized she had forgotten to buy a bed for her spirit beast. She asked Xiaoyan to squeeze in with her for just one night, promising to buy him his own little nest tomorrow. The next morning, Rian and Shinran woke up early and headed to their classroom with their respective spirit beasts. Along the way, Xiaoyan and Shinran's beast became good brothers, though, to be perfectly honest, it was more like a relationship between a boss and his subordinate. Xiaoyan patted his chest confidently, promising to look out for the little guy, who looked back at him with pure adoration. In the classroom, once all the students had arrived, their teacher, Su Xiaoyan, cleared her throat and placed a deep blue crystal ball onto the desk. She noted that after their recent dungeon experience, everyone should have a better understanding of their beasts. Today's goal was to test how much spiritual power they still needed to become official apprentice beast tamers. As the crystal ball glowed, she explained that once the spiritual power value on the crystal reaches 100, it proves they are qualified to become an apprentice beast tamer. Shortly after, Su Xiaoyan had everyone line up for the test. A male student stepped forward and placed his hand on the crystal ball, which revealed a spiritual power of 37. Seeing his score, the young man let out a heavy sigh. The teacher told him not to lose heart, as the path of a beast tamer is long and arduous. She encouraged him, expressing her belief that he would one day be excellent. He thanked her, promising to work harder. As the testing continued, most of the students in the class completed their evaluations. So far, the highest value recorded was only 67, which was still the level of a newcomer. Finally, only Rian remained. We watch as she slowly makes her way up to the testing platform. Suddenly, a burst of incredibly intense white light erupted from the podium. This light was so blindingly bright that the other students couldn't even keep their eyes open. As the glow gradually faded, everyone rushed to look at the numbers on the crystal ball. It read exactly 100. As expected, the teacher congratulated Rian on officially becoming an apprentice beast tamer. However, she noted that a final trial was still required. Rian understood and suggested they set out immediately. Her teacher agreed to explain the details on the way, instructing the other students to continue their self-study or register for dungeon training. The students complied, and while they were on the road, Su Xiaoyan handed Rian a specific task list. She explained that there were 5 items on the list. If Rian collected them within a single day, she would help her apply for her official apprentice badge. Rian agreed, and about 15 minutes later, the pair arrived at the outskirts of the Forest of Beginnings. Rian looked around and was surprised to find nearly 50 other beast tamers gathered in the same area. The teacher explained these were students from other academies who, just like her, had qualified for their apprentice trials. She warned Rian to be extremely careful once she entered the forest, reminding her to stay strictly within the outer perimeter and never venture deep inside. Rian nodded her understanding and began walking toward the entrance of the forest. Just as she was about to enter, she heard a familiar voice calling her name. It seemed she wasn't the only one here. She turned around and saw that the newcomer was none other than Bai Ningbing, who mockingly asked why she couldn't be there too. We see the protagonist looking back at the woman with an expression of pure indifference. Her tongue was sharp, to be sure. It wasn't surprising she became an apprentice beast tamer, but her mistake was provoking someone she shouldn't have. To be honest, she's in trouble. He was determined to make her pay for bullying his Empress Rian. Bai Ningbing sneered. Surprised Zhouxiao Academy produced 2 apprentices. She warned them not to die in the forest before finishing their trial. The teacher simply told her to get lost and mind her business. Once everyone had gathered, they led their respective spirit beasts into the Forest of Beginnings. A perfectly ordinary start to a dangerous trial. After entering the forest, Rian checked her list of 5 items: a tricolor deer's horn and the blood of an elite spirit beast. The list continued with a night wolf's tooth, a night wolf's beast box, and a concentration flower. Obtaining these wouldn't be too difficult. She encouraged Xiaoyan, and he was more than ready to start, as he was practically itching to level up his powers. Relying on the memories of her past life, Rian led him quickly through the dense brush. Soon, our duo encountered their first spirit beast. The creatures here were far more aggressive than those in the Academy's dungeons, attacking anything in sight, including humans, which is never a good sign. Before them stood a grassvine rabbit. It was the size of a common house pet, but its fur was a strange, mossy green. It even sported sharp fangs. Before Rian could even call for an attack, the rabbit lunged directly at them with surprising speed. Rian called out to Xiao Nian, who let out a low growl. Finally, he had a chance to unleash a powerful blast of flames. The fire engulfed the rabbit instantly. In just a single breath, the creature was reduced to nothing but a pile of smoldering ash. Even more terrifying was how the flames continued to spread, incinerating the surrounding bushes and trees with ease. It was a bit much, really. The sheer power felt like using a massive cannon to swat a tiny fly. He gained 7 experience points for the kill. 7 points for one little rabbit wasn't bad at all, suggesting the creature's level was actually quite high. Unfortunately, it was too burnt to eat. Ruyin was stunned, asking when he had learned to breathe fire and noting how terrifyingly strong it was. He felt a surge of pride. He proudly lifted his dragon head and began gesturing in the air with his claws toward Ruyin, clearly enjoying the well-deserved praise. She realized he had gained this skill through sheer focus. Generally speaking, the odds of a spirit beast gaining skills while leveling up are incredibly low. Rian couldn't help but tell Xiao Nian how lucky he was. But just as she was getting swept up in the excitement, a fierce beast suddenly launched an ambush. Fortunately, our little dragon reacted in time and flew into the air to dodge the strike. Looking back, we see a grayish-brown tortoise had appeared nearby. It seems this particular tortoise wasn't above using a sneak attack. Rian warned Xiao Nian to be careful, identifying it as a back-armored tortoise. Judging by the patterns on its shell, it was at least level 10. She noted its defense was remarkably high and advised him to aim for its head whenever possible. A sound strategy, in theory. At that moment, the tortoise opened its mouth and spat out a glob of pitch-black mud, perhaps because the creature itself was quite slow. The mud projectile moved at a snail's pace as well. Xiao Nian found it quite easy to simply sidestep the mess. A second later, he seized the opening in the tortoise's attack and lunged forward, aiming a sharp claw directly at its head. The tortoise quickly retracted its head into its shell. Fine then, if he couldn't reach the head, the shell would have to do. Under the power of his absolute penetration trait, the tortoise's pride and joy, its shell, was shattered by a single strike from his dragon claws. The back-armored tortoise was defeated, granting him 35 experience points. Seeing the creature killed in a single move, Rian's eyes sparkled with excitement. She was amazed that Xiao Nian's attack power had already reached such an incredible level. While she was busy being shocked, he had already moved toward the tortoise meat. Seeing the drool at the corner of his mouth, she understood immediately. She called him a little glutton with a smile and offered to help. After all, this tortoise still had plenty of useful parts left on it. Rian began collecting the large fragments of the shattered shell. These pieces, as it turns out, are actually quite valuable. They can be used to craft armor for beast tamers to increase their defense, or simply traded for money. Once she finished her work, Rian placed the remaining meat into a heating device. Before long, a delicious aroma began to waft through the forest air. Despite the smell of the meat, Xiao Nian didn't lower his guard, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Such a scent would surely attract others. This way, they wouldn't have to waste time searching for prey. And just as he expected, beasts from all over were being drawn in by the fragrance. As the beasts began to gather, Rian, who was still busy roasting the meat, finally noticed something was wrong. But before she could even react, a flame-maned boar suddenly burst from the bushes. Seeing more food practically delivering itself to his door, Xiao Nian swung a dragon claw directly toward its head. To his surprise, this boar had a temper just as explosive as its name, and it didn't show any intention of dodging. Instead, it gathered fire energy within its body and collided with him. The moment he was struck, his scale armor defense was triggered. The armor reflected a portion of the damage back at the boar, yet he realized its hide was somehow even thicker than the tortoise's shell. While he was still processing that bit of shock, the flame-maned boar gave a violent shake, sending the fiery quills on its back flying toward him like heat-seeking missiles. Rian shouted for him to be careful, warning that those quills could cause a nasty burning effect. Xiao Nian nodded, already forming a plan in his mind. If they were going to be that difficult to dodge, he decided he would simply destroy them all. He opened his mouth and unleashed a blast of fire, instantly turning the incoming quills into nothing more than drifting ash. With the creature's defense gone, he lunged forward and used Dragon Claw Tier to finish the boar off once and for all. Defeating the boar granted him 29 experience points, pushing him to his limit and automatically leveling him up to level 6. He was then prompted to draw a new gold trait. To his delight, he successfully pulled a rare skill called the Eye of Insight. For a moment, he wondered if this was essentially X-ray vision, and a rather questionable thought crossed his mind. However, the system clarified that the Eye of Insight only works on spirit beasts and items. That specific thought vanished instantly, though being able to see an opponent's stats was still incredibly overpowered. With the battle over, he decided it was finally time to enjoy his meal. He picked up a piece of roasted tortoise meat. But before he could take a single bite, another fierce beast charged toward them. He couldn't help but feel that just getting a snack shouldn't be this hard. Hearing Rian's warning, Xiao Nian kept the meat in his mouth and gestured toward the boar carcass and the surrounding woods. She understood he would handle things here. He looked at the approaching enemies, or as he saw them, experience points, and activated his Eye of Insight. In an instant, he closed the distance and stood before a venomous duck snake. Seeing him appear, the snake instinctively lashed out with a skill. He didn't even bother to dodge. A notification appeared stating he was poisoned for 5 seconds, but by then, the duck snake was already dead. He gained 8 experience points and a snake fang, which we learned secretes a toxin capable of paralyzing both humans and spirit beasts alike. At the exact moment he finished off the venomous duck snake, the other surrounding beasts began charging rapidly toward Rian. Xiao Nian didn't hesitate. He immediately unleashed a Dragon Eye Blast, and every plant or beast caught in its path was instantly incinerated. With that single wave of area of effect damage, he gained 30 experience points. To be honest, they were foolish to try and ambush his Rian. Seeing their companions ahead vaporized in an instant, the remaining beasts skidded to a halt, their aggression replaced by pure survival instinct. They stared up at him in the air with terrified eyes before fleeing back into the depths of the forest. Xiao Nian, the meat is ready. Ruyan waved to him from below, and hearing the call of dinner, he flew down instantly and grabbed a piece of the roasted tortoise meat. After finishing the tortoise, he moved on to the flame-maned boar meat. It seems the boar had one last surprise waiting for him. To his delight, the boar actually dropped a skill point. He chewed happily, quite satisfied with how this particular meal was turning out. Meanwhile, Rian went to process the rest of the boar's carcass. Since its level was higher than average, there was a small chance that it might drop a beast box. Unfortunately, luck wasn't entirely on their side this time, as the boar didn't leave one behind. Rian looked a bit disappointed, suggesting they rest here for the night. Xiao Nian nodded, agreeing that a break was well-deserved. She pulled a small tent from her storage ring and began setting it up as the sky quickly faded into the colors of twilight. She worried that the scent of so much blood would attract the Night Wolf King, an elite-level beast that was not to be trifled with. Seeing her so anxious, Xiao Nian flew over and nuzzled her cheek. He wanted her to know that he would handle whatever came their way. It didn't matter if it was a wolf king or something even stronger. If it dared to show its face, he would ensure it never left again. In his eyes, whether an enemy was powerful or weak, they were all just different flavors of experience points. Just then, a sharp, piercing howl echoed through the trees. Rian warned him that the Night Wolf King and its pack had arrived. This king is much larger than the others, marked by a crescent moon on its forehead. If they could kill it, the rest would scatter. He understood the plan. Cut off the head of the snake, or in this case, the wolf. And right on cue, the night wolf lunged from the shadows. The king slowly emerged from the dense forest, followed by nearly 20 night wolves. We see Xiao Nian sizing up his opponent. He immediately used his eye of insight to scan the Night Wolf King, discovering that the beast had reached level 15. He told himself that defeating such a foe would surely yield even greater rewards. With that thought, he moved toward the pack. Meanwhile, Ruyan pulled an energy shield from her storage ring and placed it in front of her for protection. The shield activated instantly, surrounding her. At that moment, the Wolf King let out a howl, and several wolves charged at Xiao Nian. To be honest, they were walking right into his hands. He lunged directly toward one of the approaching night wolves. The wolf was fast, snapping its jaws at him, but he reacted instantly, dodging and circling behind the beast. He struck its back with a powerful claw, killing it and gaining 8 experience points. Having dealt with the minion, he turned his focus. He flew toward the Wolf King, unleashing a breath of thick smoke and fire at the wolves trying to pin him to the ground. Witnessing his terrifying strength, the other wolves began to feel a surge of fear, instinctively backing away from the fight. Only the king remained standing, letting out a series of low, menacing growls. A second later, the Wolf King leaped high into the air. It raised its sharp claws and lunged toward his position. Seeing the threat, Xiao Nian instinctively dodged to the left. Surprisingly, the attack still grazed his skin. The range was wider than expected, and he realized he would have to be more careful. Fortunately, his ancestral dragon bloodline possessed incredible healing powers, and within seconds, the wound had completely vanished. Suddenly, the Wolf King appeared behind him, leaping up for another strike. Rian shouted a warning for him to be careful. He spun around and swung his dragon claw, activating a skill. This time, the king's right claw was glowing with dark energy. It seemed the beast was using a skill of its own. The dragon claw and wolf claw collided, sending sparks flying into the night sky. For a moment, the two seemed perfectly matched. This high-intensity clash of strength continued for several long seconds. Eventually, Xiao Nian gained the upper hand, and the Night Wolf King was sent flying until it crashed into a massive tree. Xiao Nian was also pushed back several paces and sustained some minor injuries, though we know they would soon heal. But just a second later, the crescent moon mark on the Night Wolf King's forehead began to emit a faint, eerie glow. To our surprise, its wounds began to heal rapidly. Xiao Nian glanced up at the moon, realizing this was no coincidence. It was the moon's blessing skill. Ruyan shouted that it was absorbing lunar energy and warned him not to let it recover. Acting on Ruyan's warning, Xiao Nian quickly gathered energy in his maw and unleashed a massive torrent of dragon fire at the king. We might expect the Wolf King to dodge, but instead, it heartlessly summoned its nearby minions to act as a living shield. This brief moment of respite allowed the Wolf King's health to fully restore to 100 points. A cold calculation, indeed. The cost, of course, was the lives of its followers, who were reduced to ash by the flames. Yet, the king wasn't finished. The Wolf King began to howl at the night sky again, clearly intending to summon even more reinforcements to the battlefield. Xiao Nian flew directly above the beast and launched another blast of dragon fire. The king reacted quickly, leaping to avoid the hit. However, this played right into Xiao Nian's hands. He knew his dragon fire possessed a lasting burning effect upon impact. The flames didn't dissipate. Instead, they formed a wall of fire on the ground, trapping the beast within a shrinking circle. With its movement restricted, the Wolf King soon found itself with nowhere left to run. It was a perfectly executed trap. Xiao Nian moved with blinding speed to get behind the king, charging his claws with every ounce of his draconic strength. He struck the back of the Wolf King's head, instantly triggering the absolute penetration effect of his golden trait. The attack completely ignored the beast's defenses, killing the Night Wolf King instantly and granting Xiao Nian 69 experience points. Having reached his current limit, he automatically leveled up to level 7 and earned a new opportunity to draw a trait. He chose to draw immediately, and we see him receive a powerful new golden trait, Potential Deprivation. Xiao Nian was slightly surprised by this new power. By simply touching an opponent, he could now seize one of their random skills. Furthermore, there was a 10% chance the target would lose that skill forever, a truly formidable ability for any warrior. It was a trait that grew stronger with the enemy. Meanwhile, having witnessed the Wolf King's brutal end, the remaining pack froze. Xiao Nian wondered if Rian could handle the sight of the Wolf King's head being crushed, so he quickly turned to check on her. Seeing the blood on the ground and the king's corpse, Rian simply made a face as if the smell were unpleasant. She was tougher than she looked. It seems he underestimated the future Empress's resolve. Remembering their goal, Rian began to search for a beast box dropped by the king. After confirming the area was safe, she stepped out of the protection circle and began scouring the ground for any spoils of war. Xiao Nian decided to help her find the box before settling in for a meal. Fortunately, their hard work paid off in the tall grass. There, we see them discover a glowing red object that looked like a stone. Rian was delighted to have finally found it. She also collected the Wolf King's teeth and a sample of its blood, completing 3 of her quest objectives in one stroke. With Xiao Nian's assistance, Rian proceeded to strip the Wolf King of everything valuable, including its fur and teeth. A thorough harvest, indeed. These materials were quite precious. Rian praised Xiao Nian, amazed that even an elite-level Night Wolf King was no match for him. Hearing her praise, Xiao Nian proudly lifted his dragon head. Only 1 day had passed, and he was already feeling quite accomplished. With 2 days left, he felt he might even achieve his second evolution. After the battle, Rian set to work on the remaining meat. She chopped the Wolf King's meat into delicious steaks, which Xiao Nian devoured immediately. To his surprise, eating the meat granted a reward. He had gained a new skill. Upon checking, he saw it was Night Claws at level 2, which seemed quite familiar. It was clearly the Wolf King's own skill. Since he had claws, it was a perfect fit. After eating his fill, dawn began to break. Rian held him close for a short nap before they set out once more to find the tricolor antlers and the Spirit Soothe flower. The flower helps spirit beasts stabilize their emotions and isn't rare, but the tricolor antlers are a far more precious find. Because tricolor deer are gentle creatures, they are often hunted by more ferocious beasts. Our duo searched the forest's edge for hours. Finally, they spotted the tracks of a tricolor deer near a pond. Rian whispered for Xiao Nian to stay absolutely silent. He nodded, slowing his movements to a crawl. Together, they tiptoed toward the deer as it peacefully drank from the water. Just as Xiao Nian prepared to seize the opportunity and strike, something unexpected suddenly appeared from the opposite side. Suddenly, a flash of light caught Xiao Nian's attention. He extended a dragon claw to point across the water, and following his lead, Rian looked over. Across the pond, Rian spotted figures lying in ambush within the tall grass. They appeared to be from Tianlong Academy, and naturally, they had also targeted the tricolor deer. One of them, a student named Zhou Tong, whispered that it was time to move, while his companion noticed Rian and wondered if she was from Jiuxiao Academy. The companion scoffed, claiming everyone from Jiuxiao was useless and should be ignored. With that, Zhou Tong signaled for their plan to begin. He commanded his beast, a flame tiger, to charge. The tiger let out a fierce roar and bolted toward the tricolor deer, which immediately sensed the approaching danger. The deer instinctively bolted toward the thickets on the left. What it didn't know, however, was that the second student, Song Hongchai, was already waiting there. Song Hongchai released his own beast, a pitch-black sonic bat. As it took to the air, the creature opened its mouth wide to unleash a barrage of sound waves. The tricolor deer was hit instantly. Though it suffered no physical wounds, its balance vanished, and it began to stagger blindly before collapsing to the ground. Seeing the deer unconscious, Song Hongchai was delighted with their success and quickly waved Zhou Tong over to claim their prize. Rian whispered that now was the time to act. It was a classic case of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, and Xiao Nian gave a knowing nod. He charged toward the 2 students, thinking to himself that if they wanted to play the part of the oriole, they would certainly need the strength to back it up. As he approached, the flame tiger and the sonic bat tried to intimidate him. Amused by their arrogance, Xiaoyan immediately activated his Eye of Insight. The data appeared before him, a flame tiger with flame claw and a sonic bat capable of sonic attacks. Quite standard, really. Xiaoyan felt that these two were hardly worth the effort of a challenge. He slowly ascended into the air, and then he let his internal power erupt. An incredibly powerful, invisible pressure surged outward. In an instant, the flame tiger was slammed down, its limbs pinned uselessly against the earth. Even the sonic bat wasn't spared. Despite being in midair, it was driven straight into the dirt by the sheer weight of Xiaoyan's presence. Seeing their spirit beasts suppressed in a single breath, Zhou Tong and his partner were completely stunned. They had no idea what was happening. Because their beasts were being crushed, the two students found it difficult even to breathe, their bodies frozen in place by the overwhelming aura. Once Rian had secured the tricolor antlers, she signaled that they were finished. Only then did Xiaoyan slowly withdraw the crushing pressure and return to her side. With half a day remaining, Rian led the way as they continued their search through the forest, looking for the final items on their list. Finally, in a patch of grass beside some thick bushes, they discovered a focus flower, which meant their mission was officially complete. 2 days had already passed, and Rian decided that the remaining time should be spent helping her little Xiaoyan level up and find some tasty treats. She affectionately patted his head, and while he certainly agreed, their peaceful moment was suddenly interrupted by the distant, fierce roar of a beast. It was quite strange. Even an elite-level beast shouldn't have been capable of producing a roar with such terrifying intensity. Rian turned to Xiaoyan to ask his opinion on whether they should investigate, since their primary mission was already finished. If he didn't want to go, she was perfectly happy to stay nearby, hunt a few monsters to level up, and enjoy some meat before heading back. However, as Xiaoyan looked toward the source of the sound, he felt a strange ripple of resonance within his own bloodline. He wondered if one of his own kind might be nearby, and with that curiosity in mind, he gave Rian a firm nod to proceed. He pointed toward the distance, and Rian agreed to go, though she warned that such a loud roar would surely attract students from other academies. Xiaoyan nodded in understanding, and so the pair began to make their way cautiously toward the source of the commotion. As they moved forward, the trees grew denser and the common-level beasts began to disappear, suggesting they were entering a dangerous territory. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, until they eventually found themselves standing within a literal forest of ice and snow. Xiaoyan looked around in wonder, surprised that such a place existed within the beginning forest, while Rian warned him to stay alert. Suddenly, the sharp cry of a hawk caught their attention, revealing two hawks locked in a fierce battle against a frost flood dragon. Nearby, Shen Leshan from Tianlong Academy confidently whispered to his companion that there were frost flood dragon eggs inside the cave. His companion, a stout young man, scoffed and muttered that a few eggs couldn't possibly be worth much, a comment that clearly annoyed Leshan. Leshan gave him a quick smack, explaining that those eggs could sell for $1 million. Hearing the price, the fat student's eyes widened in greed. They decided to wait for the beasts to exhaust themselves before sneaking into the cave, unaware that Rian and Xiaoyan were watching them. Noticing Xiaoyan's curious gaze, Rian kindly explained that a frost flood dragon is a high-level evolution of a snake or python-type spirit beast. As for the two birds, they were gale hawks, evolved spirit beasts that are considered the natural enemies of the frost flood dragon. Listening to Rian's explanation, Xiaoyan finally understood why those hawk-like spirit beasts felt so familiar. It seemed they carried a trace of the dragon bloodline. But as we watch, his attention shifts toward a nearby cave, where he senses several incredibly faint auras flickering in the shadows. Realizing there might be more than just one frost flood dragon, he quickly points toward the cave and uses his claws to gesture urgently to Rian. The clever Rian immediately catches his meaning, asking if he believes there is an entire nest of young frost flood dragons hidden inside. Xiaoyan nods eagerly, and seeing his excitement, Rian can't help but smile at how transparent her little companion's thoughts are. She tells him not to worry, suggesting they wait to see what the other academies do, ready to step in the moment things go south. Xiaoyan agrees enthusiastically, his heart full of joy, as they observe the frost flood dragon outside beginning to lose ground in the fight. Seeing the beast weaken, two students from Tianlong Academy grow greedy and rush forward, completely ignoring Shen Leshan's warnings to stay back. It was a fatal mistake. A second later, the dragon unleashes a burst of glacial energy that instantly freezes the two boys into solid ice statues. Meanwhile, the two gale hawks use their superior speed to soar high into the air, narrowly avoiding the freezing mist that claimed the students. Having evaded the counterattack, the hawks launch a relentless and frenzied assault on the dragon, which remains stubbornly anchored to the cave entrance. Because its movement is restricted by the need to protect its home, the frost flood dragon is forced into a defensive struggle, eventually becoming covered in wounds. Seeing the perfect opening, Leshan decides it's time to make their move, leading his remaining group to sneak around the side and enter the cave. As Rian prepares to follow, she is interrupted by the cold, mocking snort of Bai Ningbing, who seems to find the entire situation beneath her. Bai Ningbing calls them idiots seeking their own deaths, mockingly asking Ruyan if she's in a hurry to die and forfeit their bet next month. Ruyan doesn't waste her breath on an argument. She simply gives the girl a cool, dismissive glance before leading Xiaoyan quietly into the cavern. Inside the frigid depths, we see another frost flood dragon coiled protectively around 6 unhatched eggs, the true treasure of the nest. Leshan and his followers are momentarily startled to find a second dragon waiting for them, and for a second, their confidence wavers. They wonder why there's another one, but their fear quickly turns to cruel delight when they realize this dragon is already heavily injured. Thinking they've struck gold, Leshan immediately orders his spirit beasts to attack the wounded mother, sensing that her end is near. The others following behind also command their spirit beasts to attack the frost flood dragon, while they focus on snatching the precious eggs. Seeing humans intruding, the heavily injured dragon tries to launch an attack, but she is immediately intercepted by the onslaught of the other spirit beasts. She is on her last breath now, and simply resisting the barrage of those spirit beasts is the absolute limit of her strength. The greedy Shin Leshan and his group rush forward, scooping up the eggs one by one and making a mad dash for the cave entrance. The moment the eggs are lifted, the dragon fighting the Gale Hawks outside senses the danger and frantically tries to rush back to the cave. However, those two hawks continue to harass her relentlessly, leaving her with no strength or opportunity to return to her nest. Inside the cave, Ruyan steps out to block Leshan's path, calling them out as thieves and demanding they stop right there. The moment Zhou Tong sees Ruyan, his face sours. It's her again, while Leshan frowns, his expression turning fierce and dangerous. He tells her to mind her own business and get lost, unaware that behind them, Xiaoyan has approached the dying frost flood dragon. Looking at her, Xiaoyan realizes there is only one way to save her. After all, he is technically the ancestor of her bloodline. Just then, the dragon seems to sense something and snaps her head up, her ice-blue eyes locking onto the little dragon before her. Instead of attacking, she lets out a mournful, piercing cry before collapsing weakly to the ground, her strength completely spent. Xiaoyan bites his claw and lets a single drop of his blood fall onto the dying frost flood dragon's body. The blood is absorbed instantly, and in the next second, a miracle occurs as her wounds begin to heal at a visible speed. In just a few seconds, the dragon who was at death's door is fully recovered, appearing even stronger than she was at her peak. She raises her head in shock, looking at Xiaoyan with utter disbelief at the transformation she has just undergone. From his gaze, she feels an incredibly powerful pressure originating from the depths of her soul, the weight of a pure, ancient bloodline. The frost flood dragon slowly rises and bows her head to him, the highest sign of submission and respect a spirit beast can show. She is eternally grateful for his grace, but Xiaoyan simply waves a claw dismissively, as if saving a life were a minor errand. He gestures toward the cave entrance, signaling that it is finally time to make those intruders pay for what they've done. Xiaoyan reminds her to remember the young woman standing at the cave entrance and not to harm her. The frost flood dragon, Xianbing Jiao, nods as a fierce light flashes in her eyes. Obeying the command, she prepares to strike, while at the cave entrance, one of the students finally loses his patience with Ruyan's interference. Leshan barks at his companion to stop wasting words and just tear the woman apart, but in the next second, a massive, bloody maw descends from above. The dragon swallows the man whole in an instant, leaving the rest of the group completely stunned as they watch their companion vanish, which, naturally, was not part of the plan. They can't understand how this is happening. Xianbing Jiao was supposed to be dying, yet here she is, fully revived as if she had just watched an ad for a second life. In a panic, the group commands their spirit beasts to launch a desperate attack, but strikes of their level cannot leave even a single scratch on the dragon's scales. With a simple, effortless flick of her tail, Xianbing Jiao wipes out their spirit beasts instantly, leaving the students of Tianlong Academy in a state of total shock. One of them lets out a maddened scream, dropping the stolen eggs and scrambling on all fours to escape the cave as fast as his legs can carry him. He likely thought that getting outside meant safety, but after only a few steps, he is snatched up by the Gale Hawks circling above. Meanwhile, the others inside follow suit. Abandoning their greed, they drop the eggs and flee in every direction, with the lucky ones managing to reach the outer edges of the primal forest. The unlucky ones, however, simply become food for the Gale Hawks, and within just a few minutes, Ruyan is the only one left standing in the cave. At Xiaoyan's signal, Xianbing Jiao rushes out of the cave to assist her mate, while Ruyan runs over to the little dragon's side, her face glowing with excitement. She praises Xiaoyan for his incredible power, wondering aloud what kind of miracle he performed to bring the dragon back to full health so suddenly. Xiaoyan, feeling quite proud of himself, stands tall and puts his claws on his hips, a gesture that, to be honest, is rather adorable for an ancient ancestor. Ruyan can't help but burst into laughter at the sight, but outside, the situation remains dire as the male dragon is being battered by the Gale Hawks. Just as he is about to be finished off by the hawk's searing attacks, his mate, the female Xianbing Jiao, charges out of the cave to join the fray. Her current strength far exceeds her previous peak, and the mere presence of the frigid aura she radiates is enough to suppress the two Gale Hawks immediately. Despite the pressure, the two Hawks refuse to give up and continue their relentless harassment, which is when Xiao Nian finally decides to step out of the cave. He lets out a heaven-shaking roar that echoes through the forest, a sound so profound that it completely shatters the Gale Hawks' will to fight. Their intelligence might be low, but the ancient bloodline in their bones screams a warning. The creature before them is something they should never have crossed. The message was clear. This was a creature they should never have provoked. And so, the Gale Hawk quickly fled the scene, carrying its injured mate far away. By now, the male Xianbing Jiao was clinging to life by a thread. His mate rushed to his side, desperately trying to use her frost power to heal his wounds. But his injuries were far too severe, and her weak, icy energy was nowhere near enough to save him. Watching this, Rian felt a pang of deep sympathy. She bit her lip and pleaded, asking Xiao Nian to save the poor creature. To be honest, that was exactly what he had intended to do all along. And then, we witnessed the miracle repeat itself. As a single drop of blood falls, the dying dragon's body begins to transform in an instant. His wounds heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Rian watches this scene with wide eyes, her pupils shrinking in sheer disbelief at what she is seeing. She exclaims in wonder at how he recovered so instantly, praising Xiao Nian for his incredible power. Our little ancestor simply tilts his head up with pride. And why wouldn't he? This is the bloodline of the ancestral dragon, after all. A few minutes later, the male dragon has fully regained his strength. In fact, his power has surged to an unprecedented peak. Realizing who their savior is, both dragons immediately kneel before Xiao Nian in a show of deep respect. They offer their heartfelt thanks to the senior for saving their lives. Xiao Nian just waves a claw dismissively, as if saving dragons was just a minor Tuesday chore. The dragons then invite him to follow them deep into the cave, mentioning they have a gift to offer. Led by the pair, Xiao Nian and Rian head inside. We reach the deepest part of the cavern, where one of the dragons suddenly slams its head against the solid rock wall without any warning. The wall shatters into pieces, revealing a hidden chamber concealed behind the stone. We quickly step inside to see what lies within. In the next second, we are completely stunned by the sight before us. Rian gasps, pointing out the massive amount of cold iron ore lining the walls. The cave is filled with the precious metal, shimmering in the dim light. The dragon approaches a glowing, ice-blue spirit herb and presents it, insisting that the senior must accept this small token of their gratitude. This is the Xianbing dragon clam grass, a legendary material essential for ice-type serpents and pythons to break through their cultivation bottlenecks. Not only that, but it also possesses miraculous healing properties for burns caused by fire-type creatures. In short, its value is truly beyond question. Hearing Rian's description, Xiao Nian turns back toward the two dragons. He asks if they are certain about giving away such a rare and precious herb. The dragons insist, bowing low and begging him to take it. It was, in their eyes, the least they could do for the one who saved their family. Xiao Nian asks if they still need the herb for purification, but the dragons explain that his single drop of blood has already made such things unnecessary. Accepting their logic, he takes the dragon clam grass and immediately hands it over to Rian, who feels a bit awkward about receiving such a gift. However, seeing the firm, grateful gaze of the Xianbing Jiao, she finally accepts it, thanking them for what has become a truly bountiful journey. But just as Rian is celebrating her luck, a sudden realization hits her like a bolt of lightning. She cries out in panic about the 3-day deadline. The time for their trial is almost up, and they have wandered so far that even if they start running now, they surely won't make it back in time. Hearing this, Xiao Nian grows anxious as well. To be honest, he had completely forgotten the trial was even happening. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. With only half an hour remaining, we return to the assembly point whereby Ningbing, having returned early, is the first to arrive. When asked if he has seen Rian, he coldly remarks that she has likely become a midday snack for a Xianbing Jiao by now. The mention of such a beast makes Su Xiaoyan freeze in shock. She asks if they really encountered one, and Ningbing claims he witnessed a great battle. He spins a tale of Rian's supposed greed, claiming she tried to steal the dragon's eggs and likely hasn't even left a corpse behind. Xiaoyan refuses to believe it, insisting Rian isn't that kind of person, but Ningbing simply tells her that time will reveal the truth. He gives a cold, indifferent smile and offers no further explanation. A few minutes later, Shun Letian and the other students stumble back in a pathetic state. As the seconds slip away, we see that only 10 minutes remain before the 3-day trial officially comes to an end. Xiaoyan gazes at the forest entrance with a face full of worry, while Ningbing mockingly reminds her that she'll have a hard time explaining this disappearance. He notes that time is almost up, wondering how she will report the loss. But just then, a sudden, violent disturbance erupts from the nearby woods. The commotion is massive, and everyone can hear it clearly. Qi Tianrui, a teacher from the Heavenly Dragon Academy, frowns at the approaching noise. He immediately summons his spirit beast to protect the students, shouting for everyone to get back because something big is heading their way. The students' faces pale as they scramble backward, whispering in terror that the Xianbing Jiao might have actually followed them back. Everyone stands on high alert, ready for a desperate fight. In the next heartbeat, the massive Xianbing Jiao bursts out from the forest of beginnings. It really is the dragon. The students wonder if stealing a few eggs was really worth being hunted across such a distance as they look to their teacher. The students cry out that she must be the one who killed their classmate, while Qi Tianrui remains silent, his expression heavy as he stares down the Xianbing Jiao. He tells them he will hold her back while they find a chance to run, leaving Shen Leshan and the others stunned that even their teacher might not be her match. But instead of attacking, the Xianbing Jiao slowly lowers her massive head and, with surprising gentleness, begins to set Rian down on the ground. Rian thanks the great beast for its hard work, and the Xianbing Jiao nods softly before turning her attention toward Xiaoyan. With deep respect, she declares that the Xianbing Jiao clan will never forget his kindness, promising that if he ever needs help, he only needs to ask. She invites him to the cold ice cave at any time, promising her clan's full strength, and he agrees to return once his supply of cold iron ore runs out. The dragon bows low, promising to await his return, and then she turns to depart, leaving the gathered crowd in a state of absolute disbelief. It was a sight no one expected to witness. Amidst the silence, Rian carries Xiaoyan over to Su Xiaoyan and asks if they've made it back in time. It takes a moment for Xiaoyan to snap out of her shock as Rian approaches, her mind still reeling from the scene she just watched. After checking the time, she shakes her head quickly, noting they still have 3 minutes to spare, which brings a relieved nod from Rian. Rian begins pulling out every item required by the task list, asking the teacher to verify them, though Xiaoyan insists there is no rush. She smiles brightly, telling Rian they can check everything on the way back, clearly impressed by the young woman's incredible capability. Deep down, she can't help but wonder what method Rian used to make a creature as fierce as the Xianbing Jiao so incredibly obedient. Seeing Rian return safely does not sit well with Bai Ningbing, who lets out a cold snort of annoyance before turning his back on the scene. Nearby, Lu Ming narrows his eyes, giving Rian a long, calculating look before departing, his mind already racing with suspicion. He decides he must investigate her further, as anyone who can tame a dragon is worth watching. Soon, Xiaoyan leads Rian back to Jiuxiao Academy. Xiaoyan confirms that all the quest items are in order and tells Rian to go home and get some well-deserved rest after such a grueling few days. She mentions that, barring any surprises, the Apprentice Beastmaster badge should be ready by tomorrow, and Rian offers her sincere thanks. Back at the dormitory, Rian sighs to Xiaoyan about how exhausting the trial was, feeling quite dirty and deciding a relaxing bath is in order. Xiaoyan feels just as tired and messy himself. Later that evening, as she lies in bed, Rian suddenly sits up with a start. She suddenly realizes she forgot to buy Xiaoyan a proper pet bed, offering a sheepish laugh at her own forgetfulness. Xiaoyan simply shrugs it off, telling her that the blankets they already have will work just fine for him. It really is no trouble at all, he assures her, and with that, our weary travelers finally settle in for the night. If you enjoyed this journey, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe to follow along with our story. Feel free to share and support the channel as we continue to bring these adventures to life.